Okay, so for Unit 2, we are looking a lot at slope, which is a rate of change, looking at how quickly something is changing, about identifying that from either an equation, a table, a graph, and graphing those lines and equations on a graph and comparing them and things like that. It is a very long unit, so the second half of the unit is focused on kind of comparing to and seeing where they intersect at, which is called systems, so we will get to that later as well. But starting off will hopefully be a little bit of review from, I believe, 8th grade, so hopefully some of this you've seen before and might remember a little bit on. So slope is essentially how quickly something is changing, the rate of something, so if it's like speed per hour or something like that, okay? So if you are looking at an equation, we first want to make sure it's in slope-intercept form, which is this y equals mx plus b. Okay, you're going to see that a lot. So the slope is written in the m spot, okay, and the y-intercept is in the b spot. So I'm just going to label those. So m, so that means whatever number is plugged in for m is the slope. And then whatever is plugged in for b here at the end is the y-intercept. And that is, the y-intercept is just where a line crosses the y-axis at, okay? So first thing we want to think about is this equation in slope-intercept form. So let's look at number 1, y equals negative 4x plus 6. Okay, I know this is slope-intercept form because y is by itself on the left, and then I have the coefficient with x after the equals followed by a number. So I can quickly identify then, alright, well, here's my m, so if it's y equals mx plus b, well, negative 4 is in the m spot, so that is my slope, and 6 is in the b spot, so that is my y-intercept. So it's really quick and easy if they're already in that form. The second one, though, this is in standard form, so 5x plus 10y equals 40. So we're going to have to do a little more work on this one. We have to get y by itself first. So just like in last chapter when we would solve for a variable, so I'm going to start with minusing 5x, and I'll do that over here too. So now I have 10y equals negative 5x because I minused it, plus, because I was a positive 40. Alright, well I still got to get rid of that coefficient, so I divide by 10, and I divide both of these by 10 because I know they are divisible by 10. Ideally you want to keep your m, the number with the x, a fraction because it's easiest to graph that way. So I know negative 5 over 10 I can reduce or simplify by dividing the top and bottom, numerator and denominator, by 5. So that gives me negative 1 over 10 divided by 5 is 2. So negative 1/2 x, and then 40 divided by 10 here is going to be 4. So now this is in slope-intercept form, and I can pick out my m and b. So now my slope would be negative 1/2, and my y-intercept, or b, would be 4. Okay, 3, y equals 2/3 x plus nothing. So if there is nothing here, that just means that the starting point, or where it crosses the y-axis, is at 0. So if you want to write plus 0, so I think starts at the origin then on our graph. So other than that, it is in slope-intercept form. So I have 2/3 is in the m spot, and 0 is in the b. Alright, now slope from a table. You are looking at the change in the y, which is the rise, if you've heard rise over run, okay, over the change in the x. So the main thing is not switching these. So if I'm looking at x on number 4 here, that's the top row because it says those are the x's. So if I'm looking at the change, I want to look for the pattern basically. So 1 to 2, it went up 1. 2 to 3, up 1. So I'm using plus or positive. 3 to 4, up 1. And make sure you do check each number because later in the year it will be a different number. All right, now the bottom is actually adding 0 or nothing. So that's going to be important. Okay, I want y over x for my slope, so that, well, the y was 0 change and the x change was 1. Alright, this simplifies to 0. So if you type that in your calculator, to simplify, 0 divided by 1 is 0. Quick note, if that had been flipped, so say I had gotten 1 over 0, your calculator is going to say like error or infinity or something. So that is actually an undefined slope, if you remember hearing that before. Alright, so I would take a pause and see if you guys can do number 5. Okay, so hopefully you're checking your answer now. So on this one, the y change was -8 and the x change was 2. So I want to go ahead and simplify that. You can just type these in your calculator to kind of help you out with that. This one did come into a whole number, but they don't always. So -8 divided by 2 is -4, and that would be your final answer. Alright, slope from ordered pairs. So this is if you are given 2 ordered pairs, you're still finding the change in the y's and the change in the x's. If it helps you can use this slope formula here to kind of help you remember what goes where. It is important that I keep whatever I pick first. I kind of got to pick that first for the x's and the y's. So I'm going to say, let's see, y2, if you want to copy it down. Now it doesn't matter if I make the first or the second set 1 or 2, as long as I keep it the same. So I'm going to make this first set. So I'm going to say this x2, x1, y2, y1. And I could have switched that the other way, so I'll show you that here in a minute. So I'm going to plug in now. So if y2 is -6 minus y1 is -9. So I have to make sure I have minus and then -9 because that's important. And then I want to have x2 minus x1. Alright, and you want to use your calculator to simplify both the top and bottom before you do this division piece. Okay? So -9 minus, or -6 minus -9 actually changed to -6 plus 9, which will give us 3. And then -9 minus 3 is like -9 plus -3, so that's -12. And then I can divide each of those by 3 to simplify, which is 1 over -4. As long as you have the negative like out in front, that is fine. So -1/4 would be my slope. And just to show you real quick, if you had flipped these and made this x2, y2, x1, y1, that would still work the same way. Okay, so I could do then -9 minus -6 over 3 minus -9. Okay, well that then becomes -3 over 12, still divide by 3, and I just get -1/4. So technically the only difference is the negative is with the numerator instead of the denominator on that, but you still only have one negative out in front. If you wrote -0.25, that is also correct. It's just harder to graph that way, so try to keep it in fraction form if you can. Alright, so take a pause and you try 7 on your own. Okay, you should just be checking your answer. So I started with my second set as the 2 set, so I did 9 minus -7. So then just make sure, okay, if this 9 came first on the y's, so 3 needs to come first on the bottom for the x's. I got 16 over 4, which simplifies to a slope of 4. You could also write it as 4 over 1. Alright, now lastly is slope from graphs. So for a graph, you want to pick any 2 points, and since we're finding the change, you can just count the change this time between the 2 instead of, doing it as subtraction or plugging into a formula, okay? So this first one is actually the trickiest though. So let's look. So from those 2 points, these are the one that they picked. So the y change is, well, we don't really know, like how much should change. Okay, well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You could say the y change was 8, right? You could say that. But the x change was 0, okay? And this is where you're going to run into a problem. If you have, like I showed you up a little bit higher, if you do this on your calculator, 8 divided by 0, you're going to get an error, all right? Which is actually an undefined slope. And the reason for that is this is a line, so it continues on forever. So this basically, if you were to drop something into a space that didn't have an end, you couldn't really measure its stopping point or its change if it was never stopping. Okay, so this is a vertical line is an undefined slope. Alright, number 2. So they've already picked the points, but you could pick other points as well. The easiest way to do this is to kind of make this into a triangle, essentially. And you always want to read your graph left to right, just like you would for reading, okay? So if I'm left to right, I'm actually going up here. So I'm going to count, so it's, if you remember probably hearing rise over run a lot, that is the same as change in y over change in x though, okay? So between these 2 points, I'm going to count how much it went up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, and if you want to put plus 8 so you don't forget, you can. And then, so from there, for my x, it goes over 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, 8 over 4 simplifies to 2 over 1, or 2. Let's make a quick note here, just in case you have forgotten. So think for the y's, up equals positive, down equals negative, and then for x's, right is positive and left is negative. Alright, 3. So take a pause on the video and see if you can do 3 on your own. Okay, hopefully you're gonna check your answer now. So if you you can even maybe draw the point where you know that these 2 are going to meet, like if I was drawing 2 lines from there, okay? So at that point, I want to see how much I'm like reading left to right. So I'm going to start at this point, okay? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's 5 down, right? So 5 down, that's down is the y change, so I put that on top and represent it with negative since it's down. Now the x, I'm going right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right is positive, so I just keep that regular there. Alright, and then if you divide this on your calculator, simplify, or if you think I can divide both of them by 5, negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1, 5 divided by 5 is 1, or just negative 1. Okay, so hopefully that is a good recap for you and that you're thinking back a little and remembering some of this. So make sure you're getting your homeworks in on time, please, and of course always message me any questions that you have. Have a good day.